this situation again. One of you, but not both of you. No, it's too. Make it shorter. Make it shorter. Shorter. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. See, it sags. High-tech microphone stand. Yesterday there were a good number of newer people. I'm looking around the room to see if there's newer people here. Are there any newer people here? Yes? No? No. Okay. Can you see this screen from over there in the corner? No. Very good. Very good. Okay. Chakri and Div, nice to see both of you. Last time, not so long ago, I was in Silicon Valley with Vaisheshika Prabhu, and he was chattering about both of you. He's his admirer of your years and years and years. And, huh? Yeah. He's doing a lot more too. Whew. It was a Sunday. It was like 3 weeks ago, and he wanted me to do a rah Srimad Bhagavatam sets. He was already like motors were revving. He's a special person. He wants to take us there too. He's that kind of person. Okay, let us begin. Let's see what happens as some latecomers straggle in. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sat Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Yesterday was a long class because there was 50% English and more than 50% Chinese. So it took a long time. The topic, because yesterday was the appearance day of Gadadhar Pandit and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? Disappearance day of Gadadhar Pandit and? Thank you very much. And today is the disappearance day of Sri Svarupa Damodara and Shivananda Sain. Therefore disappeared within 2 days. So we're going to spend some time giving some words of appreciation and remembrance and glorification of Svarupa Damodara. And much like Gadadhar Pandit, very esoteric, because Gadadhar Pandit is a manifestation of Srimati Radharani, and a partial expansion of Anuradha. So Svarupa Damodar is in a similar category. Let's begin. Here's a very attractive presentation on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself in the mood and the complexion of Srimati Radharani. Krishna himself in the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani. So he certainly appears to be a male, yet at the same time he's Radha and Krishna combined. Krishna in the mood and complexion of Radharani. So many of you know the very nice verse which describes Radha and Krishna are eternally manifest in two forms, Radha Krishna, Pranaya Vikriti Ladani Shakti, Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Beda. There are two forms, eternally manifested, Radha and Krishna. However, in the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, those two entities manifest one form. One form in the luster, Radha Bhava, and the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani. Radha Bhava Jyoti. Jyoti is her luster or her complexion. And that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Radharani had two principal associates amongst the unlimited number of her expansions as gopis. And those two are pictured here, Lalita and Vishaka. Conventionally, not always, but Lalita is dressed in green, as you see here, and Lalita and Vishaka is dressed in blue, as you see here. So they're her confidants, and they have a very special role. They have a very special role in Radharani's moods of love for Krishna. They pacify her, and when she enters into a sulky mood or a man lila. We're going to run into that phrase shortly. She becomes angry with Krishna. And there's verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita that says the submissive mood of Chandravali doesn't give me as much happiness as the angry mood of Radharani. There's a sweetness in, because Radharani's not as a person is angry at another person or towards another person. It's not material anger. It's a loving anger. It's a very sweet anger, and he likes that very much. So Lalita and Vishaka assist Radharani in that mood. And here's a part of a larger photograph. The larger photograph is Svarupa Damodar observing a pastime of Radha and Krishna, as he was also an observer or participant in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the mood of Vishaka, assisting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to taste the love of Radha for Krishna in various ways. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was tasting the love of Radha for Krishna, it was extreme, transcendently extreme. And he was the witness and the understander of all those loving exchanges, he and Ramananda Roy, just like Lalita and Vishaka. Svarupa Damodar and Ramananda Roy acted or performed the pastime with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like Lalita and Vishaka did with Radha, with full knowledge that this is Krishna doing what he's doing. It's quite unique, transcendentally unique. So there's a whole series of how his lifetime is going to be described as being not an intimate, but the most intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is quite a claim. But the person making the claim is Krishnadas Kaviraj, and also Vrindavan Das Thakur and Chaitanya Bhagavat, but principally Krishnadas Kaviraj. Let's back up a little bit. How Krishnadas Kaviraj lived a little bit more than one generation after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So how did he know all about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Answer: two main sources besides Super Soul, Krishna inspiring him. He was a gifted person from the get-go. He was very learned, and he was a good writer. He was kavi, meaning poetic. So he was very capable of expressing subtle things in very elegant language. He was gifted. And he had the association of Raghunath Das Goswami for a number of years. And Raghunath Das Goswami will hear, I'll repeat so you can hear it second time. Raghunath Das Goswami, for 16 years, he was in the care of Svarupa Damodara. He was called the Raghu of Svarupa. So this is about Svarupa Damodara. And Svarupa Damodara understood everything. He not only had access to pastimes that nobody else had access to. He and Ramananda Roy had access to both the Leela and the Bhava of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He will hear this again. He wrote some diary, not a detailed about the language, Sanskrit language. So Raghunath Das knew firsthand. He saw firsthand by hearing from Svarupa Damodara, and then he migrated to Vrindavan after Mahaprabhu left and followed an instruction given by Rupa Goswami that every day Raghunath Das, very elevated Vaishnava on his own accord, should recite what he had experienced, what he understood from his association with Lord Chaitanya in Puri. Because the Goswamis, under Mahaprabhu's order, weren't in Puri. They visited all of them visited once. We'll hear some further. They all visited once, but short time, and then back to Vrindavan. Just like Mahaprabhu made a brief visit to Vrindavan, and then most of his time was in Puri. So they were in separation, but amongst those six Goswamis, one was in constant association. So he knew what the others didn't know. And so he was instructed, you please recite everything. And when you're done, you go through it again. When you're done, you go through it again, just every day, 3-4 hours every day. So he did for the rest of his life. And in the audience was Krishnadas Kaviraj. And when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was nearly 100 years old, very old, he was requested by all the Vaishnavas to write it. Because you know it, and we've heard it also, but after you, who's going to know in future generations? Please write it. And he was feeling not qualified, because he was an elevated Vaishnava, and by nature, elevated Vaishnavas don't feel special. They feel unqualified. There was a whole series of things happened. They kept insisting. He took the blessings of Madan Mohan, etc., etc. And so he sat down and wrote till the very end of his life. And when the very end of his life came, Chaitanya Charitamrita ended, and he left this world with a written version of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the source of which was Svarupa Damodar. As far as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Puri. And the pastime before Puri, the first 24 years, he, Krishnadas Kaviraj, happened to have a handwritten copy of the diary of Murari Gupta, who lived right behind his house. Murari Gupta's house was very proximate to where Nimai Pandit lived in his childhood. So he knew everything. Svarupa Damodar knew everything. And Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote it down. So Krishnadas Kaviraj, is what we're going to hear is primarily from him. So here's a statement. Quote, this is more or less a quote from the verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Lord, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, accepted Sikhi Mahiti's sister as one of Radha's friends. There's a name. In the entire world, there were only 3.5 devotees. No, it's a half a devotee. 3.5 devotees who were so worthy. The three were Svarupa Damodara Goswami, Ramananda Roy, and Sikhi Mahiti. The half person was Sikhi Mahiti's sister. No, I don't know why he wrote 3.5 instead of 4, but he wrote 3.5 instead of 4. So he, according to Krishnadas Kaviraj, Svarupa Damodar was one of the 3.5 most important persons in all of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates. Here's a second explanation. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami identified Svarupa Damodar as one of the 2 most important of the Lord's companions. And he names them by name, Paramananda Puri and Svarupa Damodar. Paramananda Puri was a godbrother of Ishwara Puri. So Paramananda Puri was the spiritual uncle or the godbrother of his guru. But Paramananda Puri had, in addition to that seniority, he had an intimacy with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and through that intimacy he came to know more than anyone else. He knew the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu more than anyone else except Svarupa Damodar. Now how do we know that? From Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard Svarupa Damodar singing kirtan aloud, the Lord would lose external consciousness and would fall down on the spot. There was no equal to Svarupa among all of the Lord's sannyasi associates. Svarupa was as dear to him as Paramananda Puri. Sri Svarupa Damodar Goswami was the incarnation of the delight of song, which would make Mahaprabhu dance. Now that's Chaitanya Bhagavat, different author. Delight of song, which would make Mahaprabhu dance. Now that's Chaitanya Bhagavat, different author, but similar glorification with the same 2 persons singled out, Paramananda Puri and Svarupa Damodar. And here's a third example. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami revealed that aside from the external purpose of Mahaprabhu's appearance, established the Sankirtan movement for this age of Kali, the Yuga Dharma, Svarupa Damodar revealed 3 internal confidential causes. There's a whole chapter in Adi Leela titled The Confidential Reasons for Mahaprabhu's Advent. And who revealed it? Svarupa Damodar. And how? Because Svarupa Damodar was extremely close to the Lord and thus was able to know all these matters. This is Krishnadas Kaviraj describing the history. So I'm anticipating there's probably going to be a question at the end. What are those three? So the external and internal confidential. External, Sankirtan, the Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement, Benedictine, the Yoga Dharma, etc., etc. The internal reasons were Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood of wanting, in the mood of Krishna, wanting to experience the love that Radha had for him, the happiness that she experiences in her love for him, and the qualities in him that inspire her love. Not just his beauty, not just Krishna's beauty, but the qualities in Krishna that inspire her love. And the description in Chaitanya Charitamrita goes like this: I'm Krishna myself. I mean, I'm the Supreme Person. My powers know no limit, and I should be able to understand this with a like snap of your fingers. But rasa doesn't work that way. Rasa works that the abode of love has to experience the object of love from the vantage point of the abode of love. So I, Krishna, have to assume that I'm the abode of love, I'm Radharani, looking at Krishna, and so that I can experience the love that she feels. So that I can experience the happiness of that love. So that I can experience the qualities in me that attract that love. Those are the three reasons. So he appeared as Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani. Radha Bhava Jyoti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Svarupam. And Svarupa Damodara understood all that. So he not only articulated it and then it became part of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he, as the pastimes are unfolding, he knew Mahaprabhu's mood and he augmented Mahaprabhu's mood in many, many ways. One of them was singing, because he was an expert singer, not just like he had a good voice, but he's an expert singer. And he knew exactly which songs to select, which would augment or amplify or enrich his mood of love, whatever that mood was. He knew the scriptures and the verses of those scriptures well enough, and he would sing them. Not just recite them, but sing them. Another example or presentation given by Krishnadas Kaviraj. This is a description from he Krishnadas Kaviraj, refers to a book by Kavi Karnapur. Kavi Karnapur is one of the in disciplic line. He's from Lord Chaitanya's followers, and also Kavi. He's very learned and poetic, and his birth name was Karnapur, Kavi Karnapur, and he wrote a book called Gaura Gona Desh Dipika, which put in simple language as a who's who manual. Everybody in Krishna's Leela, there's a counterpart in Gaura Leela. Everybody in Gaura Leela, there's a counterpart in Krishna Leela. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radha, Gadadhar Pandit, we heard yesterday evening, is a manifestation of Srimati Radharani and a partial expansion of Anuradha, one of Radharani's dear associates. Lord Nityananda is a manifestation of Lord Balaram, and so forth. Everyone. So there's a big long list of Lord Chaitanya's associates. And who's who? Who is this person in Krishna Lila? We heard yesterday a little bit about Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi was King Vrishabhanu. Who's King Vrishabhanu? King Vrishabhanu was the father of Srimati Radharani. And he had his role to play in Gaura Lila, Pundarik Vidyanidhi. We're going to hear some more about Pundarik Vidyanidhi this evening. But he's a personality in the drama or the Lila of Lord Chaitanya and his activities. So in this book, Gaura Gonadesh Dipika, here's what Krishna, what Kavi Karnapur writes. Svarupa Damodara is Radha's dear companion Vishaka. There's the Sanskrit that he wrote in his book. That same Vishaka who previously taught Radha the arts in Braja is today Svarupa Damodara Goswami, who rejoices in the moods of Radha and Krishna. Because that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radha and Krishna. Previously and eternally manifest in two forms, now manifest in one form, Radha and Krishna in one form. Another explanation given about his being a most intimate associate, in the final 12 years, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went over the deep end. He became totally immersed in very profound moods of Radha's love for Krishna. We'll see some paintings and discuss it a little bit. But he was there for the whole thing. He and Ramananda Roy, or Lalita and Vishaka, were constant companions of Radharani. As Radharani was experiencing what the purpose of Mahaprabhu, the internal purpose of Mahaprabhu's appearance. Here's the three again. This is the third time. The love that Radha feels towards Krishna, the happiness she experiences in her love for Krishna, and the qualities in Krishna that stimulate that love of Radha towards Krishna. So he was relishing for 12 years in a very deep, profound way. Ramananda Roy and Svarupa Damodara were there with him all the time. In many cases, the pastimes went on into the night. Everyone else was zoned out, and Mahaprabhu wasn't. He was enlivened like anything, anticipating meeting Krishna. In this and that and the other situation. And they were there right by his side. Sometimes Mahaprabhu would see Krishna or hear Krishna's flute and start running like the wind, and they couldn't keep up with him because he could run faster than they could run. And they lost sight of him. And they were in big anxiety. But for the most part, it wasn't like that, and they could just be by his side, and depending upon his mood. Ramananda Roy was very gifted at the scriptures and would narrate pastimes that would complement Mahaprabhu's mood. And Svarupa Damodara would sing. As we heard earlier, when he would sing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would become stunned or faint. It was very emotional, transcendentally emotional. And those two by Lord Chaitanya's side constantly. And they relished with him like Lalita and Vishaka relish with Radha. There's no competitorship. She's Radha and we're assisting Radha. That's it. Nothing else. So as Mahaprabhu was in the mood of Radha's love for Krishna, Svarupa Damodara and Ramananda Roy were in the mood of assisting him to go deeper and deeper and deeper in those moods of love. Mentioned, here it is again, he Svarupa Damodara, in the course of all these years of dealings, from the time he arrived in Puri until the departure of Lord Chaitanya, he kept a diary, Karacha. And he explained everything to Raghunath, and he instructed him, because he was asked, we'll see as we go further, he was instructed, Lord Chaitanya instructed Svarupa Damodar to train Raghunath Das. You're in charge of him. We'll hear later. Lord Chaitanya did not directly instruct Raghunath Das Goswami. Rather, any question Raghunath Das had would go to Svarupa Damodar. Svarupa Damodar would ask, or just give an answer. But he didn't speak directly. But he had this desire on one occasion to receive some directional, at least, orders. We'll hear what Lord Chaitanya, how he responded. But ordinarily, almost without exception, they didn't have any one-to-one. It was through Svarupa Damodar. Here's from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Again, this is Krishna Das Kaviraj writing, Madhya Lila chapter 2. There's 5 primary rasas. There's no mention here of the rasa of neutrality, because everyone is a servant in Gaura Lila. Paramananda Puri had parental affection for Mahaprabhu. Ramananda Roy had love for him in pure friendship. Govinda Das had love for him as a servant. And 3 persons, Gadadhar, who is Radharani, Jagatananda, who is Satyabhama, and Svarupa Damodar, who is Lalita, worshipped him in the ecstasy of the chief rasa, meaning Madhurya rasa. Mahaprabhu's heart was won by these 4 different loving attitudes. So he was nourished, Mahaprabhu was nourished, and they were nourished in loving exchange. So there's leelas, but major emphasis in Lord Chaitanya's teachings and his pastimes is rasa, nourishing of rasa. So now a little bit of their history. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas at the age of 24, his dear friend, who was very close to the same age, Purushottam Acharya. Purushottam Acharya was not born in Navadvip. Nimai Pandit was born in Navadvip, but Purushottam Acharya, who later and after sannyas became Svarupa Damodar, he was raised in Navadvip, but not born in Navadvip. It had to do with his father, and his father shifting after the son was married. And so when he was still very young, he grew up in Navadvip. And when Nimai accepted sannyas at the age of 24 and left for Puri, Purushottam Acharya, was very attached, and he couldn't stay in Navadvip anymore, just seeing the place absent Nimai. So he made a beeline for Benares, where there were Mayavadi sannyasis. He accepted sannyas, as Mahaprabhu did, accepted a brahmachari name, Svarupa Damodar. And then he requested, and his guru gave permission to go to Puri and study scripture. During this period of time, Shankara's influence was very prominent. Bhakti was down, and Mayavad doctrine was up. His teaching and the continuation of his teaching was still very strong. Very strong. So Puri was one of the outposts of Shankaracharya. They have some number of maths, some temples, and one of them was in Puri. So the assumption of his sannyas guru was you go to stay at one of those ashrams. He didn't stay at one of those ashrams. He wanted to study bhakti scriptures. So that's what he did. Once he reached Puri, pretty much for the rest of his life he stayed in Puri. There's a description because Nimai Pandit knew Purushottamacharya before they both took sannyas. When he showed up in Puri, immediately he greeted him very warmly. He came to know about his having accepted sannyas. Of course, he's omniscient. And he introduced him to all the devotees, starting with Svarupa Damodara. Svarupa Damodara was a constant companion of his and very dear associate of his. There's a nice pastime that described one of the friends. They're both very elevated Vaishnavas. One of them was a sannyasi. Svarupa Damodara by this time was a sannyasi. And there was another who wasn't a sannyasi, but a very elevated person. We heard his name yesterday, Pundarik Vidyanidhi. In case you don't know, some of you may not have been with us, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was a pure devotee, a Mahabhagavata pure devotee. It's an exceptionally elevated personality who liked to hide his elevation. And so he externally presented himself as if he was a materialist, with fancy clothes, perfumes, ornaments, and all the external appearances of a worldly materialist. But he was not that at all. And that was, we heard that yesterday with Gadadhar Pandit. So he also came to Puri. And when he came to Puri, his friend, Svarupa Damodara, greeted him. And they had some nice friendship and some nice discussions because they're both on this super elevated Krishna conscious platform. And one of the events in relation to Rath Yatra, there's a certain pastime. It's an annual event, just like Gundicha cleansing is an annual event in Puri. So, Odana Shasti is another event, an annual event. And during this Odana Shasti, it was characteristic year after year after year. New garments were then given to the deity. It's a nice activity. However, the garments that they wanted to give still had starch. And by Vedic rule, starch is unclean. If you receive a garment with starch, according to Vedic custom, you have to wash out the starch because it's contaminating. And then you can wear it or give it to the deity or whatever. So the garments were being given to the deity that were starched. And Pundarik Vidyanidhi, saw it. And he objected. And he went to Svarupa Damodara and said, why are they doing this? Because. And Svarupa Damodara said, the Lord is not controlled by any of these rules. So don't worry about it. It's okay. It's part of the tradition that comes from the scripture that they're following. So don't bother yourself about it. And then he Pundarik Vidyanidhi, went on and said, well, the Lord is above, but the humankind, that's us, we're enjoined not to do stuff like this. So if we're enjoined to not do stuff like this, why are we doing stuff like this with the Lord of the universe? And they had some philosophical discussion about, what's to be done, what's not to be done, those kinds of talks. And what happened was, that night, Pundarik Vidyanidhi had a dream. And in his dream, Lord Jagannath came and started slapping him with both arms, left and right and right and left. So much so, in his dream, his cheeks got swollen. And when he woke up, his cheeks were swollen. although it was just a dream, he understood. Lord Jagannath didn't like my comments about starched garments. And he informed his friend, Svarupa Damodara, who laughed and laughed and said, "You're so fortunate to have be directly punished like this by the Supreme Lord, even in a dream. Look at your cheeks. It wasn't just a dream. You were being chastised severely, personally, by the Supreme Lord. What good fortune! You're most exalted Vaishnava. You're so." So he just praised him, and Pundrik Vidyaditi was embarrassed with his swollen cheeks. So there's a pastime with Pundrik Vidyaditi. And then chronologically after that, a particular greeting or gift giving to the deities, comes Gundicha Marjana, and Svarupa Damodara was present during the Gundicha Marjana. We saw a little bit about this yesterday, because it's an important part of, the other day before yesterday. Gundicha Marjana was another pastime that happened around the same time. And after the Gundicha temple is cleansed, the very next day it's preparing the place where Jagannath would stay for 8 days, and the very next day was Rath Yatra. And during Rath Yatra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing and dancing and dancing like a madman, and reciting over and over and over and over a verse that no one could understand what he was doing. He wasn't chanting Hare Krishna. He was singing another verse from a poetic or kavya prakash that sounded like, boy and girl love song, something that you might expect in a Indian movie or something. She loves him, and woo woo woo, and all of those things in the verse. And he kept saying it again and again and again, and no one could understand except Svarupa Damodara. And then Rath Yatra was over, and there was the 8 days where Jagannath was at the Gundicha temple, and lo and behold, Rupa Goswami understood it. What did Rupa Goswami understand? Rupa Goswami understood that Mahaprabhu was taking some conventional song and using it to express a transcendental emotion. The transcendental emotion was the love that Radha has for Krishna. But no mention of Radha's name, no mention of Krishna's name, just the mood of intense moods of expressions of love from a woman to her boyfriend or lover. So Rupa Goswami, then composed a Krishna conscious verse that was like the deeper meaning behind what Mahaprabhu was doing. And what he did was he wrote it, because this was the practice at the time. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have computers. They didn't even have paper. So the system of writing something was on leaves. So he wrote a companion verse on a leaf and stuck it in the thatched roof of his little cottage. You see the Jagannath temple in the background. Mahaprabhu went to pay his respects to Rupa Goswami one day, that same day, but Rupa wasn't there. Instead, he saw this thing stuck in the roof. So he pulled it out of the roof and read it, and he understood that Rupa Goswami understood his mind when nobody understood his mind except Svarupa Damodara. So he took the leaf and took it to Svarupa Damodara and said, "Listen to this." And he read what he said, wrote what he had written, and asked him, "How did Rupa Goswami understand my mind?" And because he, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, knew that Svarupa Damodara understood his mind. So he's asking one who understands his mind, how do you know what's in my mind? And Svarupa Damodara replied, it's right in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I must conclude that you've given your mercy to him at some point in time. Otherwise, it's not possible to understand him. Then Lord Chaitanya confirmed, yes, I saw him as a fit candidate. I gave him extensive instruction. I gave him my blessings that he can understand things that worldly people can't understand on the science of devotional service. Here's the verse. Here's the English translation of the verse that was written in Sanskrit by Rupa Goswami. It's a celebrated verse. My dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I'm the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant, but I would still like to go to the bank of the Yamuna, beneath the trees of that forest. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing the fifth note within that forest of Vrindavan. It's the Rath Yatra mood. On Rath Yatra day, they're taking Jagannath from the temple, putting him on a cart, and taking him to Gundicha, representing Vrindavan. It's the mood of the gopis that met Krishna in Kurukshetra, and they were very happy to meet him. But wasn't the same, and they longed, like anything, for meeting Krishna in Vrindavan, bringing Krishna with them to Vrindavan, and being with him in that very sweet mood. That's what Rath Yatra is, at least from the vantage point of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was singing the song. Rupa Goswami understood his mood. And Svarupa Damodara knew how it was possible for him to understand his mood and his message. Then there's another passage in Chaitanya Charitamrita in connection with the Rath Yatra, because there's a whole procedure of Jagannath being taken from the temple. It's described in detail how it's done. But before he leaves the Jagannath temple, Jagannath takes permission from Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. In one sense, it's a detail. In the other sense, it's a transcendental emotion. And so the procedure, the detail and procedure is followed because it represents or inspires a certain emotion. So what happens in the procedures that are followed by the pujaris, Jagannath meets with the deity of Lakshmi. And when Jagannath meets with the deity of Lakshmi, she gives her permission that he says, I'll be back tomorrow. But he doesn't come back tomorrow. It's 8 days later he comes back. And so Lakshmi is upset. And when he comes back, she becomes angry. This man behavior, the angry lover, angry at her beloved. And so she instructs her assistants to attack the servants of Jagannath. And the assistants of Lakshmi go out of the temple and grab the assistants of Jagannath and bring them to her. So they have to report to her so she can chastise them for keeping her beloved away for 8 days instead of the next day. A lover's quarrel. But a transcendental kind, not the other kind. So it's described right in Chaitanya Charitamrita like this. Nevertheless, the man, or loving, jealous anger of the gopis is superior to that of Lakshmi. And all of the gopis, that of Radharani is the purest. When Mahaprabhu wished to hear about the gopis' man from Svarupa Damodara, Svarupa gave him great satisfaction in answering extensively, that answering, but singing songs of the lover and beloved feeling separation, and a little bit of anger at why you're taking so long to come back, which is very similar to the Radharani's receiving Uddhava. You all know the pastime. Krishna is in Mathura, just down the road. But he didn't come back. He promised he would come back, and he didn't come back, and he didn't come back, and he didn't come back. Similar. So when he didn't come back, there was a reason why he didn't come back. The reason why he didn't come back, our host wants to pass out water. If you want some water, he's going to water you all. So the reason he didn't go back was, if he went back, it would show his hand to the remaining demons on earth. The remaining demons on earth would understand how important Vrindavan and the residents of Vrindavan are. So he would, the demons would then go and harass the resident of Vrindavan. So his reason for not going back was he had to get rid of the rest of the demons before going back. In Rupa Goswami's writings, he went back. The last of the formidable demons was Dantavakra. Who's Dantavakra? You know who's Dantavakra? Jai and Vijay were cursed to take birth on earth 3 times as demons. Who were those 3 times? Who were the first 2? First 2, what, one? Hiranya, Kashipu, and Hiranyaksha. Then next, Ravana. Wait, not both of you. You can do the next. You can do the third one. Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and the last, Shishupala and Dantavakra. So after Dantavakra was killed, do you know where Dantavakra was killed? Answer: just outside the city of Mathura. There's a detail of how that happened, but that there's a place that still bears his name where he was killed. And after Krishna killed him, according to Rupa Goswami, that's when Krishna went to Vrindavan and gave his association, maintaining his promise, because the demons were now killed. So Radharani was upset. And as Uddhava is reading a letter, here's Uddhava reading the letter. Whoops. Uddhava is reading a letter. There's in the background. The letter from Krishna to the gopis. Radharani's not listening. She's talking to a bumblebee. Oh, leave me alone. You're the unreliable messenger of an unreliable master. She's just having a conversation with the bumblebee in madness. And she's angry at Krishna. And she expresses her anger at Krishna. It's jealous anger. You're with so many women. What do you need us anymore? And so forth and so on and so on. And she's angry. Jealous anger. And Krishna likes. Knowing that Krishna likes, Svarupa Damodara would narrate pastimes where the gopis would exhibit jealous anger, or man lila. There's many. There was like 6 manys. Pastimes where there's jealous anger. Without going through the wonderful pastimes. If Krishna permits, let's see if Krishna permits. If Krishna permits, next year, Kartik time, we're going to Vrindavan, and we'll go to we'll go to several of those places. One of those places is on the hill of Varsana. If you go up the back way, one of the hills is on one of the hills is Man Mandir. as a sulking place where Radharani would go when she was angry with Krishna, and Krishna would try to pacify her. So, and Krishna likes. So Svarupa Damodara would assist Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to taste that mood of Radha by songs and other messages and other teachings. He didn't try to persuade him otherwise. He nourished that emotion, transcendental emotion, and because he understood what he wanted. He understood his mood. He was just assisting him. Here's some additional points, and then we're going to end. In one of the friends of Svarupa Damodara was a Brahmana named Bhagavan Acharya. Bhagavan Acharya was a very good Vaishnava. However, he had a brother that was a very strong Mayavadi, a younger brother. And his younger brother was going to visit his elder brother in Puri. Bhagavan Acharya was spending some time in Puri, and to maintain good relations with his brother, he was hearing his brother speak Shankaracharya's Mayavad philosophy. And Bhagavan Acharya then requested, "Can you also hear from my brother?" And Svarupa Damodara blasted him and said, a number of things. It's right in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Basically, he said the same things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Said that this is poison. We don't drink poison knowingly. We don't hear this poison. He said, well, Bhagavan was going soft and saying, well, they speak about Brahman, and then back and forth. They speak about Brahman, but when they speak about Krishna, they speak about Krishna is covered by Maya. And you hear this teaching of Krishna is covered by Maya. Maya is greater than Krishna. So bhakti is blocked completely. The more you go on hearing, your bhakti creeper is going to wither and die. And you want me to go here also? Said, you don't be so foolish. He had friends, and he's chastised them very strongly. So Bhagavan Acharya said, I won't hear from him again. You're right. It was a brotherly gesture, but not wise. Another intimate service that Svarupa Damodara performed for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, many persons would come with something written, and they wanted Mahaprabhu's rubber stamp on there, something that was written. They wanted him to read it and give them the thumbs up for their nice writing. Oh, you're a good writer. Before anyone could present anything to Mahaprabhu, it had to pass through Svarupa Damodara's gate. And mainly he was looking for rasa bhasa. Now, not because many Bengalis, they were very poetic, but they didn't understand the philosophy properly, and therefore they would mix things up. So this particular occasion of many, there was someone from Bangladesh, and he had come all the way to Puri to give a copy of his writing to Mahaprabhu. But he had to pass through Svarupa Damodara. So when Svarupa Damodara read it, it was not to be presented. And he chastised him. You don't have a first understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. For you to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, you have to become a worshipper of Krishna. And you have to sit at the feet of some learned person, a learned Vaishnava, and hear the teachings. You can't just be a scholar and a good poet. You've understood the Bhagavatam. So go back and do your homework, please. And I'm not going to show this to Mahaprabhu. And again and again, he had to do similar things. He was protecting Mahaprabhu from that kind of contamination. Another one of the 6 Goswamis that visited Vrindavan, they all visited, but one that we don't hear so much about, Raghunath Bhatta. There's 6. You know who is Raghunath Bhatta? You know what the 6 are? Can you, in the green shirt? You know who the 6 Goswamis are? 1, 2. First 2. Rupa and Sanatan. That's 2. We have 4 more. I mentioned another one already, Raghunath Das Goswami, the Raghu of Svarupa. Raghunath Das Goswami. That's 3. Rupa and Sanatan had a nephew, means their brother's son. Nephew. His name was Jiva. So there's 4 so far. Jiva Goswami, let's go back up. Raghunath Das, Rupa and Sanatan. That makes 4. There's 2 more. Gopal Bhatta and Raghunath Bhatta. Bhatta is an honorific title. Bhatta means learned. It's like we had this discussion yesterday. Pandit similarly means a learned Brahmana is called Panditji. So Gopal Bhatta and Raghunath Bhatta. So Raghunath was the son, it's mentioned on the screen here, the son of Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra was a person at whose home Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed on his way to Vrindavan and his way back from Vrindavan, back to Puri. He was a great Vaishnava. Many things happened when he was in Benares, but Benares is not a nice place for Vaishnava, but there was some reason for them to be there. And his son, when his son became of age to travel, he wanted to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who he had met when he was a little boy, and got Mahaprabhu's mercy from the time he was a little boy. Now he's a young man, and he made a journey across by foot all the way from Benares to Jagannath Puri. And when he reached Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu immediately stood up, embraced him, because they knew each other, and introduced him to Svarupa Damodara and the other Vaishnavas in Jagannath Puri. So now here's another nice story, history. I mean, it's a little delicate, but you're all mature devotees, look like, or becoming mature devotees at least. And it's a story of Chota Haridas. Delicate in the sense that Mahaprabhu refused to have him see him again, because Chota means little or short. So there was a Haridas Senior and a Haridas Junior, Bada and Chota. Just like the nice Kirtanir, Bada Haridas. And then there's Chota Haridas. So Chota Haridas was known for being very gifted singer, very wonderful singer. And one time he was engaged in gathering some ingredients to cook for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when he was engaged in gathering ingredients for cooking, it was very, very special ingredients. And Mahaprabhu tasted the ingredients and said, "Oh, this is very nice. Where did they come from? Where did the ingredients come from?" And it was Malini was at her home. Bhagavan Acharya, you heard his name before, was involved in all of this. So he knew. And Mahaprabhu said, this so-called sannyasi, dilly-dallying with a lady, and he's a sannyasi, said, I don't want him to see his face again. It was like, whoa, that was pretty heavy. I don't want to see his face again, dilly-dallying with a lady. Now, it doesn't say anywhere that I've come across what dilly-dallying was supposed to be going on. He just went and accepted alms at her home. So, Svarupa Damodar, on several occasions, very intimate associate of Mahaprabhu, attempted over the course of a year to intercede and let him, he's very sorry and he didn't do anything really bad and please lighten up. Mahaprabhu wouldn't budge. For purpose of teaching a lesson. The lesson was, those in the renounced order of life, no shortcuts, no fudging, no messing, because it's a blemish for the whole of the Vaishnava tradition and culture. So very firm, very strong. And so what happened is, Chota Haridas was so bereft of his association, he decided to commit suicide. If I can't see Mahaprabhu, then what's the use of living? So he went to Prayag and drowned himself in the river. The painting is showing that sometime later, Chota Haridas came back in this angelic type of form. Mahaprabhu was by the sea in the evening, and Chota Haridas would sing for him. So while Mahaprabhu rejected him, he really didn't reject him. He rejected this behavior that he found was not to be done. But the person was different than the behavior, and there was love between the two, Chota Haridas and Mahaprabhu. This is another detail. When Raghunath Das Goswami managed to get away from his wealthy father, and he took shelter of Mahaprabhu. They met, Mahaprabhu gave him some instructions, and one of those instructions is, you receive training from Svarupa Damodar. Because there were a number of Raghunaths in Vrindavan, in Puri at the time, he was given a nickname, the Raghu of Svarupa, or Svarup's Raghu of Svarupa. And so, for the rest of his days, the intimate association between Lord Chaitanya between Svarupa Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami was very important for all of Lord Chaitanya's teachings to become known in the world. Yeah. And I mentioned this. At a certain point, Raghunath wanted some direct instruction, at least directional, not necessarily detail. So there was an audience, and here's, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, what was said. I've requested Svarupa Damodar to be your instructor. You may learn from him about the spiritual practices and their goal. I myself do not know as much as he. Nevertheless, if you have faith in my orders, here's his instructions. He's, in living as a renunciate. You may fix your direction from the following words. Do not listen to gossip. Don't engage in gossip. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna without any expectation of honor and offering all respects to others. Sounds like Shikshastika, right? Mentally render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. There's the external and then there's the internal cultivation. I briefly give you my instructions. You will learn about them in detail from Svarupa Damodar. And that's their exchange. And for the rest of his life, that's what he did. He followed Mahaprabhu's instructions. Now there's another personality that's an important personality in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. I mentioned his name. And his name is Jagatananda Pandit. Jagatananda Pandit, I mentioned earlier, in Krishna Lila, Satyabhama. Two principal queens in Dwarka, Rukmini and Satyabhama. And Satyabhama was a little on the feisty side. She would talk back to Krishna. You know the pastime. There's many such pastimes. One time Krishna visited Indra in Indraloka, and he was gifted of Parijata flower, and he brought the Parijata flower back and gave the Parijata flower to Rukmini. Satyabhama said she wants a Parijata tree. So Krishna had to do battle to get the Parijata tree because Indra was very protective of his very special Parijata trees. Krishna won, and Satyabhama received the tree. So Satyabhama she's the left wing, and Rukmini was the right wing type of personality. So Jagatananda, he strongly didn't like that Mahaprabhu, he's the personality of Godhead, he should undergo austerities? No way. So this is a cover painting of something that's in his book called Prema Vivarta. And he made some very special, by hand, sandalwood oil, pressing wood to make sandalwood oil, a whole clay pot, and gave the pot to Mahaprabhu. It stood there and wanted him to rub it on his head. And Mahaprabhu knew exactly what was going to happen, but I'm a sannyasi. How can I put fragrant oils on my head? What do you want me to do? No way am I going to use this. So Jagatananda, he said, give it to the deities. Put it in the lamp, and they can burn it for the fragrance for the deities. That's appropriate. And Jagatananda went outside the door, smashed the clay pot on the ground. What oil are you talking about? And stormed away, like, pouting. Satyabhama and Krishna. And many other such exchanges. And one of those many other such exchanges was Mahaprabhu was accustomed to sleeping on the floor. And Jagatananda couldn't take it, so he decided to make a bed. But the bed that he made was from some very expensive cloth. He dyed the expensive cloth saffron and made a little bag from the cloth, and then put cotton from a silk cotton tree. I don't know what a silk cotton tree is, but it's soft. And wanted Lord Chaitanya, with his hands on his hips, Lord Chaitanya to take rest on this bed. And when Mahaprabhu saw the bed, he asked, where did this come from? Who is expecting me to do this? Take it out of here. And slept on the floor. And Jagatananda was pouting once again. And Svarupa Damodara to the rescue. He tried to explain, he's not wanting you to become a sense gratifier. He just doesn't like you sleeping on the floor. And so he instead made a mattress and a pillow from dried banana leaves, torn into small pieces and stuffed into pieces of the Lord's used clothes. And appealed to him, please accept this. It's not cushy like the other one. So he accepted. Then some days later, Jagatananda sent a message. I want to leave Puri. I want to go to Vrindavan. Please give me your permission so I can go to Vrindavan. And Lord Chaitanya then was chastising. He's like a little boy. He doesn't get what he wants. He's going to go take his toys and go somewhere. He's very immature. It's a loving kind of conversation. It wasn't a condemning mood. So instead, he gave him an assignment There's many other things. Many other things. He did eventually go to Vrindavan. He saw Sanatana Goswami wearing a turban. And he asked him, "Where'd you get the cloth?" And he didn't get the cloth from Lord Chaitanya. And Jagannatha was a good cook. He took the cooking, the stirring utensil from cooking, and raised it in his hand. It was ready to whack Sanatana Goswami. How could you wear a cloth that's not coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? How could you do that? How bad are you? And I will smack you. And Sanatana Goswami's response is, "The love that you have for Lord Chaitanya is so wonderful. Hit me as many times as you like." And he was embarrassed that he had just, because he flew off the handle. I was ready to hit Sanatana Goswami. Gosh. Anyway, other pastimes like that. Other pastimes. We're almost at the end. Here's another nice painting. This is showing some of the scenes, a big section of the concluding chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita describe what Svarupa Damodara and Ramananda Roy experienced in this states of madness of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 12 years of it. This is a particular painting that shows they lost track of Mahaprabhu. He was running, and they lost him. They came back at the end of night, and they having been unsuccessful in finding him. And then in the early morning, they found a fisherman that was deranged, wandering this way, that way, screaming, and they calmed him down. What happened? What happened? And he said, "I was fishing, and I was pulling in the fishing net, and those giant fish, and as I was trying to take the giant fish out of the fishing net, just by touching that giant fish, all of a sudden my whole body erupted in madness, and I started running around." And I said, "Oh, can you take us to where you're bringing your net in? It would be really kind of you." So he took them, and there was Mahaprabhu, because his body in ecstatic mood, it was floating around in the ocean, or the river, and it had lost external consciousness. So they knew how to bring him back to external consciousness. And then Mahaprabhu woke up, or came to external consciousness, and said, "Where am I?" The last I remember was that he describes his experience of seeing Krishna and running for Krishna, and then Krishna disappeared, and then last he remembered, something like that. So, etc., page after page, or incident with much detail, because the detail was provided in this diary of Svarupa Damodara. And because of the diary and his training what was in the diary to Raghunath Das, and Raghunath Das repeating it out of love, under the order of Rupa Goswami to do so once he went to Vrindavan, we now have all this understanding, this history in Chaitanya Charitamrita, because otherwise it just would be lost. And it's all, authoritative. You can't get more authoritative than Svarupa Damodara. First-hand witness with deep realization of everything. His inner mood, etc. So this is the last slide. There's the final days, is what it's called. What came to Puri via Jagatananda, he was visiting with Advaita Acharya up north, and Advaita Acharya sent back a riddle that no one could understand except Mahaprabhu and Svarupa Damodara. And the riddle says, it's right in Chaitanya Charitamrita, "Tell the madman This is Jagannatha, deliver this message to Mahaprabhu. Tell the madman that all the people have now become mad like him. Tell the madman that rice is no longer available in the marketplace. Tell the madman that those who are mad in ecstatic love no longer do business. Tell the madman that another madman has spoken these words. And Mahaprabhu understood, I came into this world, one of the external reasons was the loud cries of Advaita Acharya for him to appear, and now that same Advaita Acharya is saying you can return to the spiritual world. Your mission accomplished. Thank you. You've spread love of God, and that love of God has made you become mad, and made me become mad, and others become mad. And they're no longer interested in their material affairs anymore. There's no market, there's no rice in the marketplace. There's no objects of sense gratification people are interested in anymore. Thank you. It was indicating it's time for his pastime stand, or if he so desires, he may end his pastimes now. And Svarupa Damodara understood the message, and he was really distressed, because he knew Mahaprabhu was going to leave, authorized by Advaita Acharya that he can leave, and his mood was changing. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat Svarupa Damodara and Ramananda Roy down and told him some of the external points, that is, the importance of Harinam, the importance of the Sankirtan movement, and it should be developed and spread everywhere, every town and village, and all that nice teaching, so that the world that's drowning in this dark age of Kali can get light and relief, mitigation from their misery of material existence, which is the purpose of the Sankirtan movement. So make this an important business that you engage in. And shortly thereafter he departed. So that's a little bit on the life of Svarupa Damodara. Very deep. I mean, I was pondering, what's this going to be like for if there's newer people? What are they going to understand about all of this? But as we said yesterday, there was a lot of newer people yesterday. And it's purifying. Something that's way up there somewhere. But the sound vibration, because it's glorification of a pure devotee, is purifying. Understand it, don't understand it. And to hear about them and to remember them and to glorify them, it's purifying. It's one of the nicest gifts you can give to somebody is Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita. And introductory literature also, but these elevated texts, there's nothing like it in the world. Nothing like it in the world. Okay, so time for discussion. You like this service? Taking the microphone around? So somebody help him out. Someone raise your hand so he can run over to where you are.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Maharaj, it is also said that Krishna never left Vrindavan.
Right.
Yeah. So how can we understand this of like Radharani getting angry in a loving mood that Krishna has not come? So how to understand this both points?
You know what this means? The prakat feature was withdrawn. The aprakat or unmanifest feature was not. So Krishna remained unmanifest. You know the pastime, correct? when Akrura was bringing them by chariot, Akrura wanted, Krishna and Balaram wanted to take bath before entering into Mathura, so he stopped the chariot. You know the pastime. So the Vraja Krishna remained in Vraja, and Vasudeva Krishna returned to Mathura. Krishna never leaves Vrindavan.
Thank you.
But the Vraja Krishna was not manifest. Okay? Behind you. You have something else?
No, Maharaj.
Okay, behind you.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, I have a comment and a couple of questions. Our Vaishnava line is filled with so many acharyas and appearances and disappearance days. But we only honor or meditate or worship prominent acharyas. If it was not your class today, Maharaj, I would have looked at the calendar and said it is Svarupa Damodara Disappearance Day, that's all. But his contribution and gift to us, the later pastimes of Mahaprabhu, so intimate, so deep pastimes are given by him. So we are so much indebted to him. I was just thinking, sometimes I don't even notice his disappearance day on the calendar. But honoring our Guru and Guru Parampara, is that sufficient to honor the other acharyas instead of worshipping and meditating them on their special auspicious days?
Well, the question is the language of your question. Is it enough? When is it enough?
It is not.
It's a nice start. And then, when is it enough? Does the bell ring and it becomes okay? It's enough. So you can always do more. 16 rounds. Is it enough? It's enough. It's a minimum at least. So there's an answer to your question.
Sure, ma'am.
An honest second response to your question. If I had not put this on the calendar to speak tonight, I would have remembered something, but not all of this. And I spent a good number of hours, I don't know how many, but a good number of hours assembling all of this, which was nice meditation. I'm not resenting it or feeling sorry that I did it, but I wouldn't have done it if it wouldn't have been in the schedule. But I put it in the schedule because it's nice to do. It's honoring our predecessor acharyas is spiritually beneficial for the speaker and for the hearer, for anyone.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Second question.
The second question is, Krishna is Raso Vaisaha, so as Mahaprabhu, but he rejected, if I can use the word rejected, Shantarasa.
He rejected what?
Santarasa.
Shankaracharya.
Santarasa.
Shanta. He didn't reject it. It's just not service.
Okay.
It's
when
neutral.
he came as Mahaprabhu,
he didn't reject something neutral. It's just not service.
Okay.
His teaching starts from service.
One of the slide Maharaj showed the 4 primary
That's
residents.
4 primary. But what does that mean? It means that there's 5 primary, but he wasn't as enlivened by neutrality as he was by service, etc. So he particularly appreciated and reciprocated with those 4.
Sure.
That's the meaning.
Sure. May I ask one more?
Yeah, sure.
So the diary of Svarupa Damodara, so I'm trying to understand the way it received by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So Svarupa Damodara to Raghunath Das and Rupa Goswami, then Krishna Das?
No.
Okay. Or
The way that it's described in his biography, it may be a little different than what's described in his biography, but the physical diary of Murari Gupta he had. He didn't have the physical diary of Svarupa Damodar. He had the one who had learned it and memorized it. He had Raghunath Das Goswami. From what's in the biography about him, about his life, he didn't have a copy. He didn't have a handwritten copy. But he had better than the handwritten copy. He had the personification of it. Okay?
thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. He's the young boy with the microphone. He'll get to whoever's got their hand up.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So question about who was Kavi Karnapur in Krishna Leela
Who I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
and how he learnt about who is who in Gaura Leela
Revelation.
and Krishna Leela. Revelation.
He was a realized soul, and things were revealed to him.
Mhm. Okay Maharaj. I have other question about Svarupa Damodara. So did he compile any literatures or anything Maharaj or just the diary?
There's one literature that he wrote, and there may be more, but I only know of one because it's been translated. He wrote an Astaka glorifying Gadadhar Pandit. If he wrote something else, I don't know. But that much, he is recognized as being the author of the 8 prayers in glorification of Okay.
Thank you Maharaj.
Okay.
So I was just wondering, Murari Gupta's diary, was that the early pastimes?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Before leaving Navadvip.
Then Lochan Das, he used that particular diary.
Say it again?
Lochan Das in Chaitanya Mangala,
Yeah.
he used Murari Gupta's, right?
Yes. That's my understanding. Yes.
Yeah.
His personality and style of writing were different, but Vrindavan Das and Murari Gupta and Lochan Das wrote about those earlier pastimes
Earlier.
from that same source.
Murari.
Plus whatever else that they could. In other words, there may have been other reliable sources other than that diary that they received pastimes from persons that were reliable, and they were very careful to not include unreliable stuff from unreliable sources. Yeah, Lochan Das, Chaitanya Mangala.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, in the beginning, you had a slide that was describing the different devotees and the particular rasa with Lord Chaitanya.
Yes.
If you could correct the premise of my question, my question was, how does Madhurya rasa play out in Chaitanya Leela when everyone is mostly in male bodies?
It's a rasa. It's not physical exchange. It's a loving exchange. It's a from the heart exchange. Like Jagatananda. Not physical, but it's Madhurya. As if the lover of the beloved.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned about who was Svarupa Damodar before he became Svarupa Damodar, Purushottam Acharya.
Yeah.
We don't hear much about that. No. Prior to today's class, I have not heard about that.
It's in his biography.
In his, okay. Not in Chaitanya Charitamrita also?
It's not in
mentioned?
Chaitanya
It's not
Charitamrita that I'm
okay.
aware of. I know where it is available.
Okay. So
There's a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta that wrote a very comprehensive biography from this source, that source, the other source, reliable sources, and put together a book. That's the Associates of Contemporaries, Part 1, and those that came after, Part 2, biographies, like the 6 Goswamis came after. But there were persons involved in Navadvip and in Puri, very involved in Mahaprabhu's life, and so he gathered that information from different reliable sources. And one of those, for example, is the Kavi Karnapur description of the who's who in Gaur Leela, who are they in Krishna Leela. And it's just widely accepted. Kavi Karnapur's book is widely accepted as authoritative. Back to how did he get this understanding, his realization, and he's just a very honored and elevated person. That at least Gaudiyas accept him as authoritative. It's a little bit like, it's not the same, but it's a little bit like Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya he has a very prominent role in the Brahma Sampradaya. He traveled extensively, and one of the things that he did when he traveled was he gathered books, manuscripts, because there was nothing printed, it was all handwritten, and he then decided which is authentic and which is to be rejected. So authentic scriptures and texts, because they're handwritten, there are different versions of different texts, different manuscripts of different versions of different texts. So he had a whole vast library, and there was a fire in that library. So many of those texts are not available anymore, but he would make reference to them in his writing. So it's just accepted. Madhvacharya is not a liar. There was such a book with such and such reference in that book that Madhvacharya accepted, so it's accepted because he's Madhvacharya. Not exactly the same, but somewhat similar. Kavi Karnapur, based upon realization. And other acharyas besides using his name. Rupa and Sanatan, for example, they wrote many things that are not found in the Bhagavatam about Krishna's pastimes. Where'd they come up with that? Same way Vyasadeva came up with the Bhagavatam, his realizations.
Is there any mention of how much longer Svarupa Damodara Goswami stayed in Puri after Mahaprabhu finished his pastime?
Svarupa Damodar? I don't recall. There is mention how much longer we heard yesterday. Gadadhar Pandit stayed for another 11 months. Which makes, so the number of years came to 48. Because that makes him almost 1 year younger. Because Mahaprabhu left when he was 48. And he stayed for 11 months longer and he was 48. So 1 year younger. But he was waiting for Srinivasacharya to come. Somehow, transcendentally, he was aware he was coming. But I don't recall reading anything. There may be something somewhere, but I don't recall reading it. Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, could you describe a little bit more about Rasa Basa?
Sure.
Especially, different devotees have different, like some like to draw, some like to write poems, we've seen it, but how do we encourage someone to use their creativity for Krishna, but at the same time not make sure we go down the wrong path?
If put it really simple, become an ardent follower of Rupa Goswami, and you're in safe territory, because Rupa Goswami explained mixture. There's rasa, mixture of rasas that compatible, and mixtures of rasas that's incompatible. No, it's very elaborate. So you don't ask me to give a class on something that's very elaborate, but that's the answer to your question is strict followers of Rupa Goswami will know what's what. This is proper and this is improper. Here's an example, a more contemporary example, not total contemporary, but during Bhaktisiddhanta's time, there was a celebrated Babaji who was very popular, celebrated, popular Babaji. And he did some things that Bhaktisiddhanta took exception to. Two of them, one was Rasa Basa. And he rather than having his followers chant Krishna's name, he came up with another mantra. And Bhaktisiddhanta explained, there's Rasa Basa in this mantra. He's not a qualified person. It's not a bona fide mantra. So he, shook his finger at him. But he was a celebrated person. It made a big uproar. And there was another thing that he was doing that Bhaktisiddhanta disapproved. One of his principal disciples, he had him dress as a gopi, or a female, to train him to become a gopi. So there's a name for it, Saki Beki. And it's not an approved process. It's a bogus process. It wasn't the first time it was done, but it was done by this particular Babaji. And, in traditional Bhaktisiddhanta style, he stood up and spoke loudly against a very popular guy. Because people were influenced by his popularity and not so much by their discretionary powers. But he had discretionary powers and he was fearless. And it made such a turmoil in Puri that Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I think you should leave Puri. Just go to Mayapur and chant Hare Krishna. That's when he took this 1 billion names of vow. And did it. That was the event just prior. So back to the question, what's Rasa Basa? Rupa Goswami has compatible and incompatible with some detail. Not like everything, but some detail. And it's very involved.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Incompatible rasa.
In that regards, Prabhupada, when he was on the planet in L.A., they started this Gopi Baba Club.
Yeah, what about it?
I think that was Rasa Bas, wasn't it?
You want to hear about it?
No, I'm just saying, wasn't it Rasa Bas?
Oh.
An example.
It was interesting. But it's not part of our teachings. No, that's in back to Rupa Goswami. There is such a thing as Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. And Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti means there are eternal associates of Krishna that are in different rasas. One of them is Madhurya Rasa, like the gopis are in Madhurya Rasa. And one is encouraged externally to follow all the vidhis of sadhana bhakti, and internally to cultivate the moods of the eternal associates. Externally stays the same. This is Rupa Goswami's teaching. But it is an internal cultivation. So right off the bat, to call it, the Gopi Baba Club, it's not internal anymore. No, it's quite okay to advocate Rupa Goswami's teachings. There's a teacher or two in our circuit of ISKCON speakers that regularly speaks about the position of Raganuga Bhakti in ISKCON today. But it's not like he's not forming a club and getting people to sign up and be advocates. He's educating. It's Rupa Goswami's teaching, and he's educating what the teaching is. When you understand what the teaching is, you can also understand what it isn't. A good definition is inclusive and exclusive. So he does both. That's not all that he does. He does all kinds of things. But there's a particular devotee I have in mind, and he's very qualified. He wants people to understand what it is, and as well as what it isn't. So your question is that rasabhas? It's not exactly rasabhas. It's just not part of Rupa Goswami's teachings. Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti is. And then there's a qualification, a prior qualification before entering into Raga Bhakti. You just form a club and sign up. It's not how it happens. You get the last question.
Maharaj, since we are talking about the rasa, I feel like especially we cannot go to the mood of having a rasa and everything. Still, can we have a hope that we'll go back to Godhead?
Yeah. That's a silly question. We're not advanced. And for one who's not advanced, is there hope? Our acharyas, our founder acharya and predecessor acharyas, are not liars. They're not fibbing and making up, fairy tales. It's a process. You follow the process. You follow the yellow brick road, and you get to the Wizard of Oz. That's a fairy tale. But this isn't a fairy tale. Bhakti Shastra is not fairy tale.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.